So today it is my privilege to introduce David Knaus-Hauk for his 8th grade chapel. And when I think about David, I think about how he interacts within the school community. And a couple things come to mind right away. He is always coming up and saying hello. He's very polite. He says, "Hello, Mrs. Keidel, how are you?" A big smile comes across his face. I love watching him interact with younger students. He has quite a rapport with younger students and is well known by them. I talked to his buddy a little bit about him just to get a little bit of information about him, and he said he's really kind, he's really fun, and he's funny. So that's a good trifecta. I know that he works really hard at his schoolwork, and his teachers say that he puts forth great effort, which we are always very proud of, and he's such an engaged learner. I know he spends a lot of time on the baseball diamond, perfecting his skills there, but he also plays soccer and basketball, so he is quite a well-rounded young man. He's been here since pre-kindergarten, and it's hard to believe that his journey at Montgomery is almost over, as it is with all of you 8th graders. So now I would like to invite David Knaus-Hauk forward to speak about forgiveness.
Hello students, parents, and faculty. My name is David Knaus-Hauk, and today I'll be talking to you guys about forgiveness. To start, what do you guys think the definition of forgiveness is? Forgiving people? Good. Forgiving things? Okay. Those are all great answers. Well, the dictionary definition of forgiveness is to stop feeling anger or resent towards someone for an offense, flaw, or mistake. Forgiveness is a key part in a friendship. Throughout every friendship, there will be disagreements and fights. But with forgiveness, relationships can actually be strengthened. Forgiveness is not merely something we do for others, it's also something we do for ourselves. In other words, when you forgive someone, you don't just forgive the person who has hurt you, you also keep a friendship lasting. Studies show that the act of forgiveness brings decreased anxiety and stress, lower blood pressure, and a lower risk of depression, and stronger immune and heart health. I have had to both forgive and receive forgiveness from my friends and family throughout my entire life. Once when I was little, I was at my grandparents' house, and I accidentally broke an old teacup that was my great-grandmother's. This teacup meant a lot to my grandparents. The story is that I was in the dining room, running to the kitchen, and I passed by the china cabinet with all the fancy dishes in it. And every time someone walks past this cabinet, it shakes so much, and you can hear the dishes rattle. Since I was running so fast, it shook so much that once one of the teacups fell on the ground, and the handle broke off. Now, my grandmother forgave me right away, like she always does, but initially, my grandfather didn't. He was pretty upset and felt like he didn't even want me to be there. He was so upset because the teacup meant a lot to him since it was so old. But when I said sorry multiple times, my grandfather finally forgave me like he always does. After my grandparents forgave me, we were all happy and moved on with our day. Except that my grandfather still had to glue the handle back to the teacup. Well, he loves gluing stuff anyway, so it was fine. When I was thinking about my chapel topic on forgiveness, I found 3 ways that may be helpful when you need to forgive someone. Number 1, consider why you want to forgive this person. Forgiveness is a decision that should be made thoughtfully. Take time to think through your feelings and your reasoning to better understand the situation. Number 2, pay attention to whether someone is willing to change their behavior. Have you given them the chance to change by letting them know their actions have hurt you? If so, are they working to fix their behavior, or are they doing it again without thinking how it's affecting you? Finally, number 3, choose to forgive because you want to, not because you have to. Forgiveness should be chosen freely, not under pressure. Forgiveness is a choice that you make yourself. So don't let other people's ideas of what you should do pressure you into doing something that you do not think feels right. A person should take time to fully understand their mistakes so they can give a sincere apology instead of a thoughtless apology. I am now going to read a book about forgiveness called Rising Above the Storm Clouds, What It's Like to Forgive by Robert D. Enright. Once upon a time, not so long ago, Franklin and Bess McLuhan lived in this cheerful cottage with their 2 children, Freddie B. and Esmeralda, or Ezzy for short. Mr. McLuhan liked a tidy home run with dignity and efficiency, place where everything and everything in its place, he always told the children. On this sunny afternoon, he was in the tea room reading a favorite story and basking in the peace of the place. Mr. McLuhan was very fond of this friendly feeling that flows when all is fine. Suddenly, Freddie B. and Ezzy tumbled into the room, romping, stomping, yelling, and belly aching. "Daddy, he hit me," cried Ezzy. "I did not," shouted Freddie B. "I spilled jelly on you and tried to wipe it up." "You were too rough." "Was not." Mr. McLuhan's napkin went flying, and his book. His sense of order was lost in a whirlwind as he bobbled his teacup and spilled his crumb cake all over the ground. "My word. Sit, children, and let's collect ourselves," said Mr. McLuhan. "Collect ourselves," huffed Freddie B. "What are we, a bunch of football cards or something?" "That would be quite enough," Mr. McLuhan said in the stern way that all fathers use. He began to collect himself by bending down and gathering up the scattered crumbs of his cake. "No, he said. No, she said. It was so awful. You were the one who's awful." Having straightened up his plate and cleaned up the floor, Mr. McLuhan quietly said, "Come here, children, sit by my chair. I have a question for you." Ezzy and Freddie B. eyed their father waringly. Slowly, they seated beside Mr. McLuhan's plump, oversized chair. "What is it like to forgive each other?" Mr. McLuhan asked with a quiet smile. Freddie B's ears shot way up. "Forgive her? No way. I didn't ask you to forgive Ezzy, did I? I only asked you, what is it like to forgive each other? It's like eating a liverwurst sandwich with mustard and onions on pumpernickel bread." "Oh yeah," Ezzy shot back. "It's like falling on a mud puddle and landing on a slimy frog." Mr. McLuhan sat back in his chair and picked up his teacup. "Remember going to the airport and it was thundering and lightning?" he asked. "It seemed like the whole day would be stormy. Forgiveness is like getting in a plane, taking off, and rising above the storm clouds, and until you are gently bouncing on the big white cotton ball clouds with the blue sky and the sun ahead of you all day. Think of forgiveness this way. When you forgive each other, you rise above the shouting and sputtering, just like the airplane rises above the storm clouds. Your hearts are quieter and sunnier. Forgiveness is like two butterflies newly hatched from their dark cocoon world, sharing a flower together. You know how they change amazingly from their cocoons into glittering, sparkling colors? Well, forgiveness is like that. When you forgive, your thoughts change about the one you've hurt. You now see the sparkle in the other. Freddie B. was not all sure of this. At the moment, he saw Ezzy more as a dull and drab cocoon rather than a beautiful butterfly with spark. Mr. McLuhan continued in his calm, reassuring way. Forgiveness is like a big, strong mama polar bear who just caught her little cub with his hand in the cookie jar right before dinner. She corrects him, but continues to gently love him. She loves him with a great big bear hug love, no matter what he does. Think of forgiveness this way. You keep on loving the other, even though you do not like what he did. Forgiveness is like the cat gently sharing and the dog graciously accepting that warm spot by the fireplace after both had a howling, squalling quabble that day. When you forgive each other, you both show kindness, even though the other did nothing to earn it. But when you forgive each other, you both live well. Forgiveness is like a porcupine and a mole sharing the same hole. In the wintertime, the mole steps slowly through the house, avoiding the porcupine's sharp quills, and the porcupine gives the mole lots of room. Each tries to respect the other. Forgiveness is like this, too. You might not always like what is happening, but you try to respect the other as best you can. Forgiveness is like the guppy, oh so grumpy, losing all her money at fish school. The grouper at whom the guppy grumbled yesterday swims up and just gives the money to the grouper or to the guppy without her even asking. The guppy is so grateful to receive it, and the grouper is so glad he gave it. To forgive is to be a generous gift giver. It melts the heart of the one giving and the one getting the forgiveness. Forgiveness is like this. You just had a big blow-up fight with your friend. The world is all gray clouds and gloom. You go out to the meadow with all the wild flowers. The sun is wearing a happy face, and there is your friend with the biggest smile, hoping you would come. You both lie in the meadow, look up at the cotton ball clouds, and talk about the time you took that airplane ride together. When you forgive each other, you might be surprised when you both find a fragrant summer meadow bursting forth in your heart. Forgiveness is like, Mr. McLuhan said. But Ezzy and Freddie B. were not listening anymore. They looked at each other, and their eyes danced. Their smiles were sweet. They knew what it was like to live well together. Come on, butterfly, let's play outside, Freddie B. said, as he took Ezzy's hand. "Don't you want to hear more?" Mr. McLuhan said. He never liked to end a lesson before he thought it was finished. "Thanks, Dad," said Freddie B., "but can we hear more another time? We have a meadow waiting for us." This was fine with Mr. McLuhan. He had a little bit more to clean up in the tea room before going to bed. He always liked to leave a room with a sense of order and quiet peace. After all, Franklin and Bess McLuhan knew how to live well. In the story, Rising Over the Storm Clouds, Ezzy accused Freddie of hitting her, but Freddie said he didn't, and they got into a big argument. When their dad, Mr. McLuhan, asked them, "What is it like to forgive each other?" they started yelling that they definitely wouldn't forgive each other, and that they didn't like each other. They thought the idea of forgiving would be like falling on a slimy frog. But then Mr. McLuhan told them what forgiveness is really like. It's like two butterflies, newly hatched from their dark cocoon world, sharing a flower together. Then he told them many other reasons why forgiveness is important. Through Mr. McLuhan's examples in the story, Freddie B. and Ezzy learned how to forgive one another. So in the end, forgiveness helped patch up their relationship. I will now end my chapter with a quote by Mahatma Gandhi, who was an Indian activist and the leader of the Indian independence movement against British rule, employing nonviolent civil disobedience. "The weak can never forgive. Forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. Thank you and have a great day."